receptive crowd for President Nixon here in Spokane today, as was certainly expected. Spokane County is conservative and voted overwhelmingly for President
Nixon. The President of the United States will now welcome the Commissioners General in the Roll Call of Nations.
Marvin Miller will call off each of the nations.
From the Republic of China, Zhang Guoteng.
And the flag of that nation is simultaneously being raised at the back of the stage. Their representative is coming forward to shake hands with President Nixon.
The Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, Nikolai Filipov.
Of course, these men are not strangers by any stretch of the imagination of President Nixon, but he is greeting each very warmly.
Canada, Patrick Reed, followed by the province of Alberta, Horst Schmidt, the province of British Columbia, John McCune.
Canada has actually 3 representatives because of the 2 provinces that have pavilions here at Expo.
From Japan, Haru Matsubara, Deputy Commissioner General, representing Commissioner General Yoshiro Yasui.
And there goes their flag. It's a very colorful ceremony as the flags are raised, and each of the men come by to shake hands with President Nixon.
Won Chol Sol. Iran, Muhsin Shidfa.
There goes the Iranian flag.
Republic of the Philippines, Mrs. Adelfa Centeno Kaugma.
10 foreign countries participating here at Expo 74.
Australia, William Worth. Federal Republic of Germany, Chaco von Escorff. United States of America, James Kritzer.
Jim Kritzer is a Spokane businessman, obviously well known in the local crowd. He took his position just about 2 weeks ago.
Ladies and gentlemen, a young man with vision, determination, and boundless energy. I present to you the General Manager of Expo 74, Mr. Peter Spurney.
Young is right. This man is only 39 years old and has done a tremendous job in heading up Expo 74.
It's a great thrill for me to see the flags of these 10 great nations flying above our stage. They signify a cooperative and competitive response to the urgent need to conserve our natural resources. Our belief that this can be done is set forth in our credo as inspired by our President King Cole of the exposition. To deliver the credo of the Expo 74, I am proud to present a man who is our greatest ambassador to our greatest natural resource, the children of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Danny Kaye.
One of the many special guests, Danny Kaye, who participated in this Expo 74 opening.
How are you?
Saying hello to Mrs. Nixon.
Mr. President, Mrs. Nixon, ambassadors, commissioners general, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I must say, since the theme of this fair is environment and nature, she sure did cooperate with us this afternoon, didn't she? As we meet here today to celebrate the opening of EXPO74 and the acceptance of the challenge to achieve a better environment, it is appropriate and important that we state the convictions upon which we are acting. We believe that the universe is a grand design in which man and nature are one. That planet Earth, a small part of the universe, is the residence of mortal man. That man is the custodian of his environment, as the environment is the custodian of man. That man in his growing wisdom will renounce the age-old boast of conquering nature, lest nature conquer man. That the skies and the seas and the bountiful earth from which man draws his sustenance are the preserves of all mankind, and that in the brotherhood they derive from nature, the nations of the earth will join together in the preservation of the fragile natural heritage of our planet. We believe in the restoration of the reverence of nature, which once filled our own land, where the American Indian roamed in beautiful concert with his environment. We believe that the human spirit itself must set its own limitations to achieve a beauty and order and diversity that will fill the hearts of the children of the world with a new and happier vision of their destiny. We believe that from this city of Spokane, there goes forth today to the world the message and challenge that the time of great environmental awakening is at hand. All this we believe, and we know in the belief of them lies the way of their achievement.
Mr. Danny Kaye reading the credo of EXPO74. And here go the 1,000 homing pigeons from four corners of the Expo site, 250 released from four different positions. These homing pigeons from the Spokane area are flying over the Expo site to their home. 1,000 of them. This is Tom Reed at the grand opening day of EXPO74 in Spokane. largest in the world. The 1,000-voice choir of the Expo Band and the NORAD Band, These Things Shall Be.
Ladies and
Presidential Press
gentlemen,
Secretary
great
Ron
tribute
Ziegler,
must
just
be
below our
paid
vantage point here.
to the legislators of the state of Washington. To host a World's Fair is an incredible undertaking. This was made possible through the efforts and resources of the officials of this wonderful state. I would now like to introduce one of those men whose untiring efforts on behalf of EXPO74 have covered a broad range of personal and official actions to make the city of Spokane a center worthy of an international exposition. Ladies and gentlemen, Congressman Thomas A. Foley.
Tom Foley is the son of a judge here in Spokane, who's a Democratic congressman and well-liked.
Mr. President, Mrs. Nixon, Governor Evans, Your Excellencies, Your Eminence, Secretary Dent, Mr. Mayor, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. The most distinguished and famous former member of the House of Representatives, the President of the United States, is with us today. And the President knows that we have a tradition in the House called the one-minute speech, which I shall try to adhere to. I first must bring you greetings from my colleagues in the Congress, especially our distinguished senators, Senator Warren G. Magnuson and Senator Henry M. Jackson, who join me in the immense satisfaction and pleasure of this day. Secondly, if I may take the liberty of expressing on the part of the people of this city and region our great joy and pleasure in the efforts that have come to fruition today. All those thousands who by their skill and talent, their imagination and vision have made this exposition possible. And our pleasure that 9 great nations have joined the United States today in this demonstration of man's cooperation with nature and his vision for the future. In the decades ahead, all the world must strive for peace, not only the peace of avoiding war, but the peace of reconciliation with man's own work and technology. And within borders as well as beyond borders, that effort must be common. And we are extremely pleased to have the excellencies, the ambassadors, the consuls general, and the commissioners general of the participating nations here with us today. It's a great honor for this city and this region to welcome them. But most of all, I think I speak for the people of this region in expressing our great honor and pleasure in the presence of the President of the United States and Mrs. Nixon, who have come here today.
Another large hand for the President.
Who have come here today on behalf of the people of the United States to express the commitment of this nation, together with our great foreign colleagues and all the community of nations, in striving for peace, understanding, and human progress for all mankind.
Congressman Tom Foley, who represents the Spokane area
Thank
in the
you,
United States
Congressman
Congress.
Foley. EXPO74 and the state of Washington have been greatly enhanced in the eyes of the world by the efforts of Governor Evans. He has placed the prestige and authority of his high office behind the efforts of the people of this state to bring to full realization this unprecedented international exposition dedicated to the environment. Ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to present His Excellency Daniel J. Evans, Governor of the state of Washington.
Governor Evans, a Republican governor of the state of Washington, and he will introduce the President of the United States, Richard M. Nixon.
Thank you.
Mr. President, Congressman Foley, distinguished ambassadors, representatives of foreign nations, and all of my fellow citizens of the state of Washington and our guests from throughout this nation, I have several special honors today. First, to make several introductions. We're all proud that the President and Mrs. Nixon could come and be with us today. We will hear shortly from the President.
And a large hand at the name of the President.
But just as I am very proud of my own First Lady, I know the President is extremely proud of his First Lady and the nation's First Lady, Mrs. Pat Nixon.
Nixon with a beautiful bouquet of flowers. Looks very refreshed considering they've been on a long trip from Washington through Phoenix before coming to Spokane.
And one of the distinguished members of the Cabinet responsible for ensuring the participation of the United States, and particularly the United States Pavilion, is the Secretary of Commerce, the Honorable Secretary Dent. Mr. Secretary.
The Secretary went on a tour of the site earlier this morning with the official party.
In going out to Fairchild Air Force Base this morning to greet the President and Mrs. Nixon, I passed by a sign which I think we ought to all remember in a fair devoted to the environment. This reader board said just these words: let's stop treating the earth like it was rented. And perhaps that's a pretty good motto to keep in mind. We have a small, a precious, and a fragile planet, one which deserves the tenderest care we can give it. And this exposition, devoted as it is to that protection, is significant for the time in which we live. I'm extremely proud of all citizens of this state, and particularly those legislators who have helped bring this exposition into being, and the people of Spokane who several years ago started on a task which many said could not be done. The obvious and happy conclusion is in front of you today. They proved that Spokane could do a job, could do it beautifully, and I think my only fear is that as the eyes of the world focus on Spokane this summer, Spokane itself will feel enormous growing pains next year. Mr. President, Mrs. Nixon, on behalf of the people of the state of Washington, we are delighted to send along with you a small remembrance of your visit, which we hope will grace the White House. A crystal bowl with engraving designed by a distinguished Spokane artist, Harold Belaise, and executed by some of the finest craftsmen, the Cusack family of Seattle, will be sent with you as a permanent reminder of your visit here today. And now, I take deep pride representing the state of Washington and all of its citizens. Pride because we are a great part of this United States. Pride because his visit recognizes the importance of this occasion. I hope you will all join with me in a true and warm Washington welcome for the President of the United States. Mr. President.
All of the dignitaries are standing on the official platform. Everybody here at the Expo site is standing, and it is, Governor Evans, a very warm welcome from the President of the United States, Richard M. Nixon. The President is chatting for a few moments with Governor Evans, now waving at the crowd. And the Expo balloon is up.
Governor Evans, Secretary Dent, Congressman Foley, Your Excellencies representing the nations from abroad, Your Eminence, all of the distinguished guests, and all of those here on this historic occasion for the opening of Expo 74. I'm honored to be here for a number of reasons. First, because the state of Washington, under the leadership of Governor Evans, I think is generally recognized to be the first state in the nation in terms of trying to protect the environment. We congratulate the state, its governor, and its legislators. And then it is a great privilege to be here on this sparkling, beautiful day to speak about what this particular occasion means not only for now and the days ahead in this summer when I hope that hundreds of thousands and maybe millions will come to see it, but looking down through the pages of history perhaps to the year 2000, 25 years from now, when we celebrate a New Year's that comes once in 1,000 years, and when we look back to see what we did now to make that a new year that was not only the greatest new year for America, but for every nation in the world. Today we speak of the environment in terms, as we should, of cleaning up the air and the water, of a legacy of parks, of all of those other things that have to do with making our cities and our towns and our countryside more beautiful for our children and those that follow us. The environment means all those things, but environment also means other things to people. It means, for example, for every family in America, a job so that he can enjoy the environment around him. And there are those sometimes who say that the two are in conflict, that it is impossible to have a great productive society like America, the most industrialized nation in the world, in a clean environment. We have gone through a period in the energy crisis when there have been evidences that these two great interests, one, production, which would provide jobs, and two, a clean environment, seem to come in conflict. But let me tell you what the answer is. We can have both, and we shall have both. And the way we can have both is to develop the great resources of this country in a way that they will not pollute the atmosphere, that they will contribute to a clean environment. And that is why we are going forward in terms of our huge government programs in research and development for the purpose of seeing that our coal resources can be developed into a clean fuel. That is why we are going forward in our programs for the development of solar energy and nuclear power, which of course would be clean fuel. And I can assure all of you here that your federal government, working with the states, working with private enterprise, can and will achieve the goal of not only a better and cleaner environment in terms of our water and our air, but also the jobs, the opportunity for all Americans that is so important for us to enjoy an environment. Another aspect of environment that occurs to each of us, of course, is what this magnificent expo is going to leave as a legacy. It will leave, I trust, some of these beautiful buildings. It will leave a 100-acre park in the heart of the city of Spokane, which was once a blighted area. These will be physical monuments to what you, the citizens of Spokane and the state of Washington, have done in putting on Expo 74. But beyond those material things, it will leave something else. And that is a new spirit, And what impressed me as I read about how this expo came about was that the idea did not come from Washington, D.C. It came from Washington State. Those who worked on it, those who conceived it, and most of the money that went into it came from the people, and to the people of this state, we give you the congratulations for a magnificent achievement. And it is that spirit of individual enterprise, that spirit of doing things and not depending upon someone else to do them for you. It is that spirit that developed the West and the Northwest. It is that spirit that will continue to make America a great nation, we trust, in the years ahead. There's one other aspect of the environment to which I should like to refer, and it is particularly appropriate that I refer to it in the presence of these very distinguished representatives from the other nations who have exhibits here for Expo 74. We can have good jobs and fine security and good health and clean air and clean water, and it will make no difference unless we find a way for the great nations of the world to settle their differences at the conference table and not on the battlefield. And that is why we have opened, as you know, negotiations with those who might have been our adversaries, negotiations which did not mean that either we or they agreed with each other in terms of philosophy, but negotiations that had one overriding concern, and that is this: World War I was destructive. World War II was destructive. There cannot be World War III, because it will destroy not only the nations that participate in it, it will destroy civilization as we know it. And we cannot let that happen, and we will not let it happen. That is what we must do if we are to have the kind of environment that we want for the future. And now, in the presence of the representative from the Soviet Union, as he knows, I will soon be having another round of talks with Mr. Brezhnev and his colleagues in Moscow. We will not agree on all things. We will have sharp debates, but let me tell you this: whether it was with him or whether it is with leaders of other countries that are allied with or neutral countries in the world, there is no disagreement with regard to the need for all nations to cooperate, share their knowledge and their brains in cleaning up the environment of the world. We're not just talking about the environment of Spokane or the state of Washington or of the United States, but of this whole globe in which we live. And that is a great enterprise that Expo 74 will be remembered for in the years ahead. Because as we look at where the great ideas, the great breakthroughs come, which deal with the scourges which have afflicted mankind from the beginning of civilization, we find that no one can predict that it will come from one nation or from one continent or from one race, because that spark of genius might be in the Americas, it might be in Asia, it might be in Latin America, it might be in Africa. What we have to realize that among the 3 billion people that live on this earth, there are those men and women who have within themselves that genius that will find new answers that will help us to get the clean air and the clean water and all the other things that we want to have a clear environment. And going further than that, in that whole world, we must recognize that that spark of genius that will find the answer to the diseases that plague mankind, it may not be here in America, it may be at some other country, but the important thing for us to remember in this period, when we have ended America's longest war, and when we are moving through a generation and longer of peace, let us see that not just America, but all nations, whatever their differences on philosophy, work together to clean up the environment, work together in the causes of peace, and in that way we will make the progress that we want to make by the year 2000, which the whole human race can enjoy. No national pride should be taken in the fact that one nation or another finds the answer to what may cure cancer in its various aspects, what may deal with some aspects of heart disease and many of the others that afflict mankind. No one nation can take any jingoistic pride in the fact that one of its scientists or one of its technicians found an answer to the problem of a cleaner environment. What we must do is to recognize that it is together, working together, thinking together, that we will find answers that we would never find if we were not talking to each other, negotiating with each other. And that is why I say to you, my friends gathered here in this magnificent day in the state of Washington, in the city of Spokane, you are dedicated to a great goal, celebrating a new and fresh environment for tomorrow. What will that tomorrow be? And for all those that are young and who will be here to celebrate that New Year's 25, 26 years from now, I'll tell you what I think it can be. And this is a beginning. It can be a time when the whole world can look back on progress in conquering the scourges of disease that have afflicted all people wherever they may live. We can look back on a period when the whole world enjoyed the benefits of what our scientists and engineers were able to find out in terms of making our air and our water cleaner and better for everybody. But most important, let us hope and let us pray on this day that we can look back and say that over that 25 years, the peoples of the world, despite their differences in philosophy, live together in peace. Let this be a day in which we concentrate and consecrate as well, not only our efforts in America, but also working with peoples in other nations toward the goal of a fresh new environment in terms of peace for all mankind, so that we can enjoy the magnificent environment that you see around us here today. Thank you.
The President of the United States, Richard M. Nixon. A very warm reception of the President here in Spokane today at the opening of Expo 74. While the President was speaking, 3 out of the 10 Expo hot air balloons have ascended into the sky. Each balloon is marked with the flag and colors of the countries they represent here at Expo.
As the fair officially opens, we invite you to celebrate with us tomorrow's fresh, new environment. Mr. President, will you say the magic words?
Now President Nixon comes again to the microphone to open the fair.
At 12 noon on this day, acting in my capacity as President of the United States, it is my high honor and privilege to declare Expo 74 officially open to all the citizens of the world.
As the president said those words, all of Spokane will ring in the World's Fair Expo 74. Now, throughout the city of Spokane right now, all of the church carillon bells are ringing simultaneously, and 50,000 balloons are being released from the various countries' floats, which are docked on either side of the main reviewing stand and from other locations here at the site. 50,000 balloons, which were provided by Neil Schwartz, the balloon man. And what a job it was. Neil is next to me here. Neil, what time did you start preparing for this release this morning of these 50,000 balloons?
Our help arrived on site this morning at 4 o'clock, and we physically started inflating at roughly 4:15 to 4:20.
And how many people did it take, Neil, to actually get all of these 50,000 balloons inflated?
At last count, we had 97 people working inflating balloons.
Is this one of the larger balloon releases that you have done in recent years?
Yes, it is, with the exception of the Transpo release, which was the 100,000 release. This would be the second or third largest balloon release that we've ever done. Well, as a matter of fact, we've never done anything larger than the 100,000. And of course, we've never done anything between 50 and 100, so this is the second really 50,000 we've done.
Neil, how far from Spokane today, just a wild guess, do you think some of these balloons might end up?
I think very, very possibly with the large size balloons, or the larger balloons that we're using, the 30-inch and 20-inch balloons, I think we possibly could look at somewhere around 400 to 500 miles.
Thank you very much, Neil. You've done a great job today.
Thank you for coming around.
Thank you very much, Neil. What a spectacular sight it is with the 10 balloons, the hot air balloons, and the 50,000 balloons floating into the sky over Expo. A great round of applause for this tremendous spectacular for the opening. Now, President and Mrs. Nixon are coming forward and are walking down the red carpeted ramp here at Expo 74. It's officially open. Mr. Nixon, Mrs. Nixon waving to the crowd, followed, of course, by Secret Service men and Governor Dan Evans immediately behind them.
Hey, Maxie, I'll see you downstairs.
They are walking up a short flight of steps in between the dignitaries here at Expo. The band continues to play, and the president will exit the same way he came in. He turns, waves at the crowd, shaking a few hands as he goes along, and the band strikes up one of the Expo themes, Meet Me by the River. Many hands along the walkway going out to be extended to President and Mrs. Nixon, and what a glorious opening ceremony it has been here at Expo 74. Expo 74 is now officially open from Spokane, Washington. We had another first here in Spokane today. Every radio station and television station in the city of Spokane has been carrying our live ceremonies, which began at 10:30 this morning. We certainly appreciate these radio and television stations and the tremendous cooperation and, of course, the sponsors that made it possible. This entire show, and it was a tremendous production, was produced for Expo 74 by Tommy Walker. Tommy, for 12 years, was with Walt Disney and handled all of the entertainment, in fact, opened the Disneyland in Anaheim and handled all of the entertainment spectaculars for Walt Disney. And he has done a spectacular job with the opening ceremonies here at Expo 74, the World's Fair in Spokane, Washington. I'm Tom Reed at the site of the Expo 74 opening. We will have a few wrap-up comments for those stations which will be able to remain with us. The television network, which has joined us across the state of Washington, Oregon, and Canada, will be leaving us at this time on the Expo television network. Well, what a day it is for Spokane. Thousands and thousands of people lined the site of Expo 74, and I think to a man, this has been one of the most thrilling sights in Spokane.
We should like once again to acknowledge the participation of our outstanding musical groups. The NORAD Band, Major Melvin Hewlett, Director.
Marvin Miller is giving thanks.
Dr. Wayne Hertz, Conductor. The Expo 74 Band, Gerald Webster, Director. The Percussionauts, Howard Robbins, Director. All of today's pageantry was produced by Tommy Walker, and I am Marvin Miller, hoping that you enjoy every moment, every minute, every hour of your stay at Expo 74. I thank you.
Marvin Miller, just one of the many celebrities here on the opening day of Expo 74, doing a tremendous job as Master of Ceremonies. As he told us earlier, this was the first time that he had been with a President of the United States on a program which he was a part of. He is the last one to leave the stage. He's not, however, the only movie and radio star that is on the Expo site. Of course, we heard from Danny Kaye earlier. We also have with us for the opening day ceremonies here at Expo 74, Marietta Hartley, who you see on TV commercials and programs all the time. Marietta, what brings you to Spokane for the opening of Expo today?
Well, I don't know if you know, but I'm now commonly known as Ms. Bell.
Ms. Bell, huh?
Well, that beats Ma Bell. And I'm the Pacific Northwest Bell spokeswoman. And I'm the one that bothers everybody early in the morning and is saying, use your directory assistance. Don't use your directory assistance operator because you're paying for it.
You're the one that always tells me to look up my phone number.
And but I think the main thing is just to open up our exhibit here, Pacific Northwest Bell. Well, it's generally the Bell System exhibit, and start the slide films and things like that. But it's mostly to see that I just love the fair.
Isn't this a beautiful sight out here for an opening with the river?
Oh, it's just incredible. I haven't seen the birds go up. That's what I'm really looking forward to, the birds and the balloons and the boat and everything getting together.
Well, this, Martha, was a tremendous day. And it was spectacular that I think will go down in record books as one of the best for opening fairs. On the tramway, which goes right over the river, some of the band members now, Martha, have the various petals of flowers which they are dropping in the river, which is a most colorful sight. This tramway is something which you can ride in when you come to Expo 74. It goes from one end of the Expo 74 site to the other. The canoes with the Indians are now rowing into position. However, the barges representing each of the 10 nations participating are still in their position. The flags, of course, are still up for the nations. And we can't help but make some comparison about the opening ceremony here at Expo in Spokane and Century 21's opening. Century 21 was the World's Fair held in Seattle, Washington in April of 1962, and there were some very definite contrasts. In Seattle at that time, the weather was cool and overcast. Here in Spokane today, the weather could not be better. 70-degree forecast today during the morning hours for the opening, about 60 degrees and just excellent. Vice President Johnson was at the opening of Century 21, but he left early when there was very little attention being paid to him. Actually, the biggest name there was John Glenn. There was a tragedy at Century 21. You may recall an Air Force F-102 jet crashed into homes at Mount Lake Terrace and killed 2 people. The president of Century 21 at that time was Ed Carlson of Western Hotels, who is now president of Western Airlines. It's interesting to note that the Washington State Pavilion at Century 21 was about $7.5 million, and the pavilion here at Expo is close to $11.5 million. The Washington State Pavilion is basically an opera house and will remain as a permanent part of the city of Spokane. We had here at Expo today the President of the United States and his wife, However, Century 21 only had President Kennedy via a telephone line. He pushed a button in Florida where he was vacationing, and that officially opened the gates of Century 21. It's interesting to note, too, that the Russian pavilion, which I'm sitting right across from, is larger in space than all of the foreign pavilions put together at Century 21. So it indeed is a day that people in Spokane, all of us in the United States, can be proud of. It's a fair that you'll enjoy coming to. It's one that is working hard to do something constructively, as President Nixon indicated, about our environment. All in all, things went extremely well. The people who were here on the site have been pleased to see it in person. And throughout the entire Spokane area, as the church bells pealed, the 50,000 balloons could be seen all over the city, and the 10 hot air balloons which are up in the air are a sight to behold, representing the flags of each of the countries. It's been a great pleasure on a statewide network in Canada and in the state of Oregon on radio and television to bring you these great opening day ceremonies from Expo 74. We'll look forward to seeing you here at Expo 74. Meanwhile, for the entire Expo 74 radio and television department, I'm Tom Reed, thanking you for joining us, and we'll see you at Expo 74 Spokane.
The ACN Radio Network has presented the actual broadcast of the opening ceremonies of Expo 74. As a very young man, I was honored to have been the on-air radio and television host for this historic program. Without a doubt, the opening of Expo 74 in Spokane, Washington, was history in the making, and today you were there. This is Tom Reed. Thanks for listening.
World's Fair 74.
I'm Tom Reed at Expo 74.
World's Fair 74.
Well, of course, the opening ceremonies at any major event such as this are quite exciting, and also must have the dignity and the pomp and ceremony that goes along with it.
A little more than was necessary, say, at Disneyland, in the dignity end.
Yeah, on this occasion, we will have the many foreign countries and their representatives that'll be in attendance, and naturally our own national government people that will be here. We'll have fun with it too, but it will retain the dignity that it should have.
That's Tommy Walker, entertainment consultant for Expo 74. Yes, opening day at Expo 74 in Spokane will be a great day. The highlight of the entire exposition, like most premieres. Today, Tommy Walker discusses with me his plans for the grand opening day at Expo 74. In addition to the usual dignitaries who will be at Expo 74's grand opening day ceremonies, along with Danny Kaye, Tommy Walker has planned some of the unusual.
We're also planning activities like a international expo canoe race, 38 miles down the Spokane River. We're planning a balloon race from here, the old hot air manned balloon race. There's a lot of little things that we're having, and like the all of the log rolling and tree chopping and all the other contests that'll be going along.
Entertainment really is far broader than just having a big name sing or a band play, isn't it?
Oh yes, I think so many times it isn't necessarily the name. I think it's seeking out quality entertainment for the people. That really is the key, and in the proper setting. Like our Expo band, we're going to attempt to have an all brass band that can play legitimate music as well as interesting music. And there's not too many people other than those in England that have heard a brass band, you know. But we'll also do modern arrangements with it, and it'll be something new and different. There's going to be mimes that we'll have around the fairgrounds. We'll have our old Expo hot air balloon. It'll go up every day. It'll be tethered, of course. We'll have kite flying demonstrations. Well, there's just hundreds of little things that we will do, and as you know, we're bringing in over 25,000 participants throughout the fair from virtually every state in the Union, the high school bands, college bands, musical ensembles from schools, churches, and that, which will give us a good feeling of the people performing.
World's Fair 74.
On our next program, we'll find out how important entertainment is to a world's exposition. I'm Tom Reed at Expo 74.
There's a place I want to go, a place where trees and flowers grow. Across a river wild and free, atop a waterfall, you'll see a bright new world for you and me. Each of us should see a land that lives in harmony. They say the Northwest is a magic land. I'd like to spend some time there if I can. A World's Fair 74. Gonna celebrate a free land. A World's Fair 74.
World's Fair 74.
I'm Tom Reed at Expo 74.
World's Fair 74.
Can we run through it just one time so I can see what's going to happen? Because I haven't seen
Nothing happens. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. All right, let me see your entrance, Judy.
Today, I'm outside, standing in front of the Washington Pavilion on the site of Expo 74 in Spokane. A few feet away, Expo's Tommy Walker and Jim Key are directing the filming of a public service television announcement. They're about ready to cue the star. His name is Bob Hope.
Hi, this is Bob, Environmentally Invigorated Hope. I'm on the road again, this time to Expo 74 in Spokane, Washington. It's so lush you wouldn't believe it's Crosby's hometown. 11 nations are here to celebrate the birth of tomorrow.
Bob Hope will be appearing at Expo 74 on May 26th. He came to Expo to film the television announcements you'll be seeing and the radio announcements you'll be hearing during a college campus tour. I joined Bob during the outdoor filming at Expo and chatted with him between scenes. I was interested in what type of show he'd be bringing to Expo.
Well, the same kind of show that I always do. We're doing all timely stuff, you know, and things that are in the news. And I have a regular concert act that I do anyway for about, last night I did an hour and 15 minutes over there. And I always do in the neighborhood of an hour.
I understand you're going to use some local talent.
I don't know anything about the surrounding show. I haven't talked to Tommy much about that. But we'll have a pretty good show.
When Bob Hope appears at Expo May 26th, he told me he'll use some material about Bing Crosby, since, of course, Spokane is Bing Crosby's hometown.
Well, I always do a lot of stuff about Bing, you know, and I'm sorry that he's ill. You know, he just gave birth to an 8-pound orange pit. But he's better. That's what I'm happy about. I was at the World's Fair in Seattle, and I had a whole thing about the World's Fair over there and Space Needle. You know, it always throws you a lot of material. But I'll have a lot of local material.
In appreciation of Bob's making the radio and television announcements for Expo, Mr. Peter Spurney, Expo General Manager, joined us in the car to present Bob with a special gift.
Hi, Mr. Hope. Nice to meet you. General Manager, we can't tell you how much we appreciate your stopping by and doing this for us. We got a little tie for you. I don't know if you're interested in the Mobius strip.
I'm not worried. I'm doing streaking these days, so I'm not.
Well, that's the Mobius strip. That's our theme, our motto, and it stands for every living thing, the sky and the water, and we think it's kind of super, and we'd like you to have one.
Very pretty tie, too. Thank you. I'll wear that, kid.
World's Fair 74.
Tomorrow, we'll chat more with Expo Entertainment superstar Bob Hope. I'm Tom Reed at Expo 74.